study some Bhagavad Gita as it is. That's not the right verse. Okay, you wrote 38.
Sorry.
All right. Well, we'll read 38 since that's what's written. Okay. Let me just see something on the chat there. Okay. Thank you. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. I'm recording. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Hare Krishna. It's June 1st, 2020. We're starting from Bhagavad Gita as it is, chapter 4, entitled Transcendental Knowledge. We're on text 38. Text 38, I'll start with the Sanskrit words responsibly. Na, hi, Jnanena, Sadrisham, Pavitram, Iha, Vidyate, Tat, Svayam, Yoga, Samsiddha, Kalinat Mani, Vindati, Nahi Jnanena Sadrisham, Pavitramiha Vidyate, Tatsvayam Yoga Samsiddha, Kalinat Mani Vindati, Nahi Jnanena Sadrisham, Pavitramiha Vidyate, Tatsvayam Yoga Samsiddha, Kalinat Mani Vindati, Nahi Jnanena Sadrisham, Pavitramiha Vidyate, Tatsvayam Yoga Samsiddha, Kalinat Mani Vindati,
Nahi Jnanena Sadrisham,
Nahi Jnanena Sadrisham, Pavitramiha Vidyate, Tatsvayam Yoga Samsiddha, Kalinat Mani Vindati,
Nahi Jnanena Sadrisham,
Nahi Jnanena Sadrisham, Pavitramiha Vidyate,
Tatsvayam Yoga Samsiddha,
Tatsvayam Yoga Samsiddha, Kalinat Mani Vindati. Would anyone else like to recite the verse?
Nahi Jnanena Sadrisham,
Nahi Jnanena Sadrisham,
Pavitrami Havidyate,
Pavitram Iha Vidyate,
Tatsvayam Yoga Samsiddha,
Tatsvayam Yoga Samsiddha,
Kalinat Mani Vindati,
Kalinat mani vindati. I'll now go to the word for words responsibly. Na,
Na,
never.
never.
He,
He,
certainly.
certainly.
Yanena,
Yanena,
with knowledge.
with knowledge.
Sadrisham,
Sadrisam,
in comparison.
in comparison.
Pavitram,
Pavitram,
sanctified.
sanctified.
Iha,
Iha,
in this world.
in this world.
Vidyate,
Vidyate,
exists.
exists.
Tat,
That,
that.
that.
Svayam,
Svayam,
itself.
itself.
Yoga,
Yoga,
devotion.
devotion.
Samsiddha,
Samsiddha,
matured.
matured.
Kalena,
Kalena,
in course of time.
in course of time.
Atmani,
Atmani,
in himself.
himself.
Vindati,
Vindati,
enjoys.
enjoys.
Translation. In this world there is nothing so sublime and pure as transcendental knowledge. Such knowledge is the mature fruit of all mysticism, and one who has achieved this enjoys the self within himself in due course of time. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. When we speak of transcendental knowledge, we do so in terms of spiritual understanding. As such, there is nothing so sublime and pure as transcendental knowledge. Ignorance is the cause of our bondage, and knowledge is the cause of our liberation. This knowledge is the mature fruit of devotional service, and when one is situated in transcendental knowledge, he need not search for peace elsewhere, for he enjoys peace within himself. In other words, this knowledge and peace are culminated in Krishna consciousness. That is the last word in the Bhagavad Gita. Om Jnanatimmirandasya Kananchana Shalakaya Chakshurmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayamupakadamayam Didati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuttapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Scha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Saganaganatanditam Tam Sajivam Sadvetam Savadutam Parijana Sahitan Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagna Lalita Shri Visakanvitam Scha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radhakanta Namaskate Tapta Kancana Gauranga Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Manamami Hari Priye Panchakalpata Yubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanan Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya, Krishna Prastaya Bhutale, Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine, Namaste Saraswati Devi, Gauravani Pracharine, Nirvishesha Shunyavadi, Paschatya Desha Tarine. So this is text 38 of chapter 4, Bhagavad Gita. Nahi jnanena sadrisham pavitram iha vidyate tatsvayam yoga samsiddha kalenat mani vindati. In this world, there is nothing so sublime and pure as transcendental knowledge. Such knowledge is the mature fruit of all mysticism. And one who has achieved this enjoys the self within himself in due course of time. Could you plug in the adapter just so the battery doesn't run low? Thank you. Hare Krishna. So this verse talks about one who has achieved this enjoys the self within himself in due course of time. It was saying, I've heard attributed to Saint Francis of Assisi, that we are searching for what is searching. We're searching for what is searching, right? So everyone here has a contract from the advanced seminar, right? And so that's the idea that these qualities, whether it's a quality of security, whether it's a quality of love, whether it's a quality of fulfillment, satisfaction, empowerment, that joy, peace, that contract means like, yeah, I'm a peaceful, powerful, loving person. Unless there's a pandemic, unless there's protest in the street, as long as my income is at this, then I'm peaceful. But so that's the whole thing with being on contract means whatever's whether things are going according to the script I would write, whether there's a whole calamity and catastrophe in my health, in my mind, because we're not the body and we're not the mind. Just like we're not the hardware of the computer, we're not the software, we're the operator of the computer. So whatever's going on in the world, this one approves of me, this one doesn't. Whatever is going on, this is who I am. I'm peaceful, powerful, trusting, loving, secure. Okay, and because these are the qualities of the soul, and the soul is inherently transcendental to all aspects of the material context. And that's why before one gets their contract, we usually do a challenge, right? To say, okay, you're talking a good game, but will you stay on contract when you're challenged? That's the idea. Because whatever challenge we do, it's not a millionth of a percent of the challenge we'll get when we go out of the seminar room into life. That's why we do a little challenge in the seminar room. Okay, so all those qualities we're searching externally for. If I just get that relationship, if I just have that car, if I just have that position in the company, if I could just get that person to respect me, if my health would just improve to this point, then I'll be happy, satisfied, peaceful, stable, clear, powerful, assertive, loving, vibrant. But for now, I'm just this depressed, miserable, resentful person because the externals. So much of Bhagavad Gita, and this verse, this chapter, the chapter is entitled Transcendental Knowledge. Transcendental knowledge, essentially, well, I'm going to say a foundation of that transcendental knowledge is realizing who we are as not the body, not dead matter, not this bag of skin and bones. Of course, this is also a beautiful machine that we get to use in God's service, but that we're the amazing spirit soul. That the soul is amazing, right? We're this eternal, unstoppable, imperishable, unchangeable living entity that can't be killed. And if we have that knowledge, Nainam shastrani, nainam chindati shastrani, nainam dati pavaka, nachanam kriya po, nashushayati marute, that the soul can't be killed by weapons, can't be burned by fire. Then we're blissful. Otherwise, to the extent that we misidentify the self with a material body, then we will be living in anxiety. And so this is the knowledge that gives peace. This isn't just some information or some data to manipulate the material energy. This is actual transcendental, realized knowledge that brings us peace, realizing, really, I'm this eternal entity that cannot be smashed, that cannot be affected by disease. Yes, the material, the vehicle can be affected by disease, old age, death, and then rebirth, but not the soul. And so, Prabhupada says, there's nothing so sublime and pure as this transcendental knowledge. Ignorance of this knowledge of who we are as spirit soul, the ignorance is the cause of our bondage. And we want to be free from the miseries of material existence, birth, death, old age, miseries coming from cheating and limitations and mistakes and eating, sleeping, mating, defending, miseries coming from our own mind, miseries coming from others, right? This, sometimes I'll quote Emma Scott Peck in his well-known book, The Road Less Traveled. He was a psychiatrist. And the first line in the first sentence in his book is, life is difficult. And he said that once we accept this fact, then life is no longer difficult. And then we're no longer disturbed by the difficulties. So it's completely Bhagavad Gita. The nature of material context is just it's difficult. It's one disturbance after the other. Does that mean we need to live disturbed? No. We can be complete if we're in knowledge of who we really are, spirit, soul, servants of God, and whatever's happening in the difficulties of material context. We continue to serve Krishna with enthusiasm, and we're not disturbed by the disturbances. If we're like, well, life is disturbing, but I'll just fix it. I'll just fix it once I have a vaccine for this disease. Once there's no more riots. Once I get that job, then that's always the carrot being chased, the carrot on the stick being chased. So to realize, I mean, it's nice to get this cognitively that I'm not the body, I'm spirit, soul. I've probably heard it more than 1 million times. I'm not the body, I'm spirit, soul. How much am I realizing it? We can tell how much we're realizing it by how we live our life. Our realization is tested by our actions and our habits. Right? How much am I living as an eternal spirit soul, and how much am I living as if I am this body, which is subject to death, old age, disease. We can say the body will die, that's for sure. But actually, more precisely, the body's always dying at every second. The body's always dead. Right? Just like the car is made of inanimate stuff, made of rubber and metal and plastic. It maybe to an alien from another planet, it would appear it's alive, but it only appears alive when there's those living organisms called the human being parasites inside. And then they might say, oh, there's these living entities called Ford, and Chevrolet, and Dodge, and Renault, and BMW. No, the car's always dead. So the body appears animated because the soul's inside. Okay. So we generally get this knowledge by performing divine austerity. Then we have, because austerity means, because animals, plants, they don't do austerity. Like they feel like eating, let's eat. Feel like having sex, let's have sex. Feel like sleeping, let's sleep. Time to defend, let's defend. And so, and then if that's all we do, eating, sleeping, mating, and defending in glorified form, then we're like Dvipadapasha, we're like two-legged animals. And that's, I mean, each species has its distinctive function in God's creation, for sure. And the distinctive function of spiritual being having the human experience is that we get to voluntarily do austerity. We get to voluntarily give up immediate gratification of the senses for some longer-term enduring fulfillment, ideally eternal spiritual fulfillment. Because to the extent that we're slaves of our senses, to the extent that we indulge more than necessary. When I say more than necessary, it's described in the Bhagavatam. Kamasya nendriya pritir, labo jive tiyavata, jivasya tatva jigasa, nato yasya karmabhi. It's described there. Life's desires should never be directed towards sense gratification. One should aspire for a healthy life, for self-preservation, because the essential goal, the ultimate goal, the distinctive goal of the human form of life is to inquire about the absolute truth. Nothing else should be the goal of one's works, of one's desires. Meaning that keep the body healthy. Just like we're not the car. It doesn't mean we neglect the car. In fact, if I really value my higher purpose, if I value my higher purpose in life, and let's say, I have an important meeting in Jacksonville, and next month I'm going to be driving to Atlanta. So I want to take good care of the car, right? Because it's important. I'm not dependent on the car ultimately, but I want want to take good care of the body. So we want to take good care of the body. At the same time, to the extent that we indulge the body in sense gratification that's not necessary for serving self-realization and developing love for God, to the extent that we indulge in the bodily senses, then it becomes practically impossible to actually achieve this knowledge, because then we're fostering and we're strengthening and deepening our entanglement and our enmeshment in the illusion that I am this body and I'll be happy by satisfying the senses of the body. So the idea is Tatshradadam Muneyo Gyanavairagyan Yuktaya Pashantyat Mani Chatmanam Bhakti Shrutikritaya. That's described the humble student or sage, well equipped with knowledge and detachment, with austerity and detachment, realizes about the soul and about the supreme soul in God through performing bhakti yoga. And bhakti yoga, this is a spiritual process of transformation. It's not a process of elimination. It's a process of not denying the senses, but using, just like right now, we're using the senses of the tongue, the faculty for speech, the faculty for hearing. We're using those senses. And we could use the same senses by just singing some song on the radio, or just using our eyes to watch this article, click on that on the internet. Right? We can use our senses in a way that entangles us further in the illusion that we are this body, or we could use our senses in a way that moves us to detachment from matter, which is really the source of a lot of torture and suffering, and moves us to this transcendental knowledge. That's the real peace and bliss of the soul. Please, realizing who we are as spirit souls and what our natural eternal function is. Nityasiddha Krishna Prema Sajjaka Banoy Shravanadi Shuddhachite Karye Udai. Love of God, love of Krishna is eternally situated in the hearts of all living entities. And it's awakened by this process of hearing and chanting. So that we sometimes, as often, we make the distinction between the blank slate approach to transformation, where the idea is at the core we're nothing, and on the foundation of that nothing, we can invent any possibility we choose. And that's not Bhagavad Gita, that's not Sappho. Our approach is what I call the diamond approach to transformation. That at the core, we're that amazing, irreducible quanta of consciousness, the spirit soul, and we naturally possess all sublime qualities, all the contract qualities. And we've allowed that diamond to get covered, and just like a diamond can get covered by dust or dirt or thick mud, but a diamond is always pure and bright and brilliant and shining. And so transformation is a process of cleansing, of uncovering and letting our natural devotion shine, our natural love of God shine forth. So this is the science of how to do it. If this is the, because I mentioned about austerity. I use the term divine austerity. There's a text in the Bhagavatam by Rishabhadev speaking to his sons, headed by Bharat. Deho deham, nayo nayam deho deham, ajam viloke kastan kamano heti vid pujami, tapu divyam pujaki nisatvam shuddhiyadyasma. Shuddhiyadyasma brahma sakyam tvanantam. And so that says that the special function of the human form of life is divine austerity. Because the thing is, we could say, oh, I don't want to do austerity. I just want to enjoy, I want to have fun. But everyone's doing austerity. Right? Like if we want to raise a child, we're going to do it. Means we're going to forego immediate pleasure for the longer term fulfillment of raising the child as a virtuous person of character. If we want to get a college degree, if we want to develop a business, like, oh yeah, I really want to enjoy on the beach, but I'm going to work. I'm going to work 80 hours a week to get this degree, to develop this business, and then later I'll have my retirement plan. So that's the idea. So it's distinctively human to do austerity. Other animals don't do that. Our choice is to choose the goal of our austerity, and our goal can be to get that degree, to get that much money, to get that house, and we're not criticizing them. And ultimately, the recommendation is to perform austerity, which we're going to do anyway. Well, I'm not going to do austerity. I'm just going to get up early, drive 2 hours to work, go to a job I hate, come back in another 2 hours in the subway or something. That sounds pretty austere to me. So every human being is doing austerity. And so the recommendation is get as much as possible towards approaching 100% perform austerity that produces benefit in the form of this transcendental knowledge. Perform austerity that produces benefit that will never be destroyed, never be crushed by time. Okay, because we can do austerity to get that house, to get that degree, to get that person to like me, to lose weight. Okay. To have the body fit right, like, oh, I'd like to just be a couch potato, but I'm going to go to the gym 5 times a week. Okay, but then my back. Okay, but what's the body going to look like 100 years from now? Okay, it's going to be worm stool, or it's going to be food for fishes, or okay. So again, not that we want to neglect a nice body, but again, the distinctive function, the distinctive opportunity and possibility of the human form is to do austerity that helps us to realize who we are as not the car, as the driver of the car. And then so this verse is emphasizing there's nothing better than that. There's no better taste. There's no higher taste than to have that realized knowledge. And then bhakti yoga, it's a process. Anasaktasya vishayanyatarhamupayunjata ibanda Krishna sambandhe yuktam vairagamuchite. It's a process where we don't reject, but we take we learn the art, we learn the science to use everything, our family relationships, our mind, our propensities, our talents, music, dancing, singing, cooking, our eating propensity, our service propensity, not to reject in the name of spiritual life. Bhakti Yoga is, it's not a form of escapism. It's learning the art and science, how to utilize everything in the service of the Lord, how to use everything in the service of Sri Krishna. And in that way, Atashri Krishna Namade, Nambhavet Govinda Seva Mukha Ityuda Svayam Eva Sparat Yada. And then in that way, our senses become purified, and we actually develop. We develop Vishaya Nivartate Niraharasi Denan Rasa Varjam Supyasya Param Jishta Nivartate. We develop an actual higher taste, and we're actually like rejoicing in the natural bliss of the soul. And then we're not searching for what is searching, because we found what is searching and all of the qualities there. And a metaphor Prabhupada uses sometimes is the musk deer, right? Musk is like a very sweet fragrance. They use it for cologne or something or other. And so there's like a certain type of deer called the musk deer. I think it's in like the forests of Tibet or something like that. And so the musk deer has a special gland that exudes this sweet fragrance. So it's described that the deer will be running around the forest looking for this beautiful fragrance, but it's actually coming from its own gland, and it doesn't realize it. So we, the soul, naturally have all these qualities, but not in a void. No, these qualities of the diamond soul are manifest when we give up our material ego and we surrender our life to serve Krishna. Krishna is a name for God, meaning the all-attractive, supreme personality of Godhead. we surrender our life to serve Krishna with love and devotion, then all of the beautiful qualities of the soul, the softness, the gentleness, the power, the radiance, the playfulness, the joy, all those qualities are naturally manifest to the extent that we do austerity, giving up the immediate gratification of the material mind and senses to experience ever-ending, increasing, ever-deepening peace and bliss. So this verse reads, Nahi jnanena sadrisham pavitramiha vidyate tatsvayam yoga samsiddha kalenat mani vindati. This is text 38 of chapter 4, Bhagavad Gita. In this world, there is nothing so sublime and pure as transcendental knowledge. Such knowledge is the mature fruit of all mysticism. And one who has achieved this enjoys the self within himself in due course of time. Hare Krishna, thanks for your presence and attention. Thank you, Hare Krishna. I welcome at this time if anyone would like to share any comments, inspirations, or realizations, or ask any questions.
I have a question.
Ramachandra, I'm with you.
Yeah, I'm wondering how what is the experience of starting or being not as entangled from the body as we would be in a pure materialistic consciousness? How do we know we disentangling from the body?
How do we know?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
What are the symptoms of?
Well, the symptoms is we experience. Krishna says, Rajavijaya Rajaguyam Pavitramidam Uttamam Pratyakshava Gamam Dharmyam Shushukam Kutumam. He says this is the king of knowledge, the king of education, because it gives direct experience of the self. So we experience ourselves. For most, it's gradual, but there could be glimpses of intense realization. We experience ourselves as not as disturbed by the urges to eat and sleep and get angry and the urges of the tongue, the belly, and the genitals. We might still, at a very elevated stage, there's just no more material urges. It's just desire to serve Krishna through his pure devotee. But at some stage, it might be we'd have less and less interest about the blah, blah, blah going on, just like useless topics that don't relate to self-realization. We're less interested in gossip, and we're more interested to hear about self-realization and God consciousness and Krishna consciousness. These are symptoms. In hearing your question, I'm remembering I was first introduced to Krishna consciousness in it was August or September 1980 in State College, Pennsylvania. It was a center run by Stambhadas Prabhu, and I took prasad 3 times a week, 4 plates each time for 3 years before I changed 1 round of japa. And then in the summer of '83, I backpacked around Europe, and while I was in State College, I wasn't appearing to take anything about Krishna consciousness seriously. I had started reading some of the small books of Srila Prabhupada, like Science of Self-Realization, Beyond Birth and Death. But me and my friends, we would just go to the center, prasad, and laugh about it, make fun of the devotees, that sort of thing. And then I noticed, in the summer of '83, I was 22 years old. And in my life, I traveled down to Florida, along the East Coast, different places. I'd never been west, and I'd never been outside of the United States, never even been to Canada at that time. And so it was my first time outside of the United States, and I landed at, I think it was Heathrow Airport in Canada. And I just noticed And I had I was a young man, I had the whole world to do. And what I did was I went into London, I put my stuff down in the youth hostel, and I found the Govinda's restaurant and temple at Soho Street. And I had it happened to be a Sunday. It was a Sunday feast. So I said, and then the next morning I got up early at the youth hostel. I got up early, and I was noticing myself taking a train out to a place called Letchmore Heath, which is where Bhaktivedanta Manor is. George Harrison donated his mansion to Srila Prabhupada. And it's a wonderful Krishna temple now. And I spent like 2 days there. And then I went through some travels. And I noticed wherever I would go to Paris, I would just find I would put my stuff at a youth hostel. And then, see, I hadn't been chanting. Then before I left State College, Pennsylvania, Stamba, he gave me some beads. He said, here, put these in your bead bag. You might use them. Okay. And I never chanted before. But then I would just walk around the city, Paris, Stockholm, Copenhagen, Antwerp. I would just walk around the city chanting Hare Krishna and looking for Govinda's restaurants. Okay. And then towards the end of those travels, I had a 4-month URL pass. I could, for a very low cost, I remember it was $250. I took trains all around Europe for like 4 months. Literally from the southern tip of Greece to the North Pole, literally. I went to a place called Bodø, Norway, which is technically in the North Pole. It's not like the tippy tip of the North Pole, but it's technically in that range. Anyhow, so towards the end, it was like in August, and I landed upon this big Hare Krishna festival. It was around Janmashtami and Srila Prabhupada's Vyasa Puja time. It was in the North Pole. This was not the North Pole. This was in Italy. Okay. This was at an ashram called Villa Vrindavan outside of Florence, Italy. I heard it used to be the castle of Machiavelli. And in France, the devotees had a place called New Mayapur. It used to belong to Rousseau or some famous writer or something. Anyhow, so they had this huge festival. They had, for Janmashtami, they had 1,108 preparations.
Oh my God.
Most of them pasta of certain sorts.
That was your first Janmashtami?
It was my first Janmashtami, yeah. So I was sold. This is the path for me. So anyhow, I remember I was talking to a Dhanavir Prabhu, who was Dhanavir Maharaj. He was the leader of the Israel Yatra, because I was on my way to Israel, so they kind of hooked me up with the Rukmini and Nityasiddha and like that. And I just remember I talked with him, and I was just, because I was absorbed in this, and I was doing service in the kitchen, and it was just a prasad, and there was these deities. And I remember making a comment. I said, like, I don't find myself in any way disturbed by hunger or sex drive, and my mind is like very active yet peaceful. So just like it was the first time I noticed, like, there's something that like really works about this process. This isn't just some empty philosophy. So that experience that I had there in the summer of 1983. I have not steadily maintained it. I've certainly had my challenges, but I do have enough experience over the 40 years, 37 years since I'm chanting Hare Krishna, 40 years since I'm taking prasad, that by being steady in the process, my consciousness is raised, meaning my consciousness of who I am as a spirit soul gets stronger and stronger, and unmistakable knowledge, and my detachment from material desires diminishes. So I've had epiphanies of like amazing consciousnesses of transcendence, like in that summer of '83. But for the most part, my life is not one of ecstatic epiphanies, but it is one by practicing this, what's called sadhana bhakti, regulated devotional practices of Krishna consciousness. Then I definitely experience my consciousness steadily the diamond cleansing, my process, but it's steadily advancing, and part of that is detachment from matter and false material desires.
Thank you, bro. Yeah, that's kind of what I get from like your sharing, how it's like your irresistible attraction to a Krishna consciousness or anyone's, it's like puts perspective of how much we actually consider ourselves as spiritual beings, because that's kind of what I heard like in between the lines that you were sharing, which really touched me, that you just appeared in random places, but in these random, so-called random places, you found Krishna.
Yeah. Yes.
Which is really
that was the actual attraction. Yeah, I was surprised to see myself going. I was observing myself, like here I am in this new place in Europe and Germany, France, and Belgium, and all these places. And there's so many things to do. And not that I didn't do any of them, but like all I wanted to do was like find the devotees and chant Hare Krishna. So it was like that. And because when I was in Pennsylvania, whether Philadelphia or State College, I had too much false ego to allow myself to admit to myself that this Krishna consciousness is really attractive. Because what would my friends think? What would my mother and father think? What will my friends who think I'm a cool guy think? They'll think I've gone crazy. But then once I got out of that false ego context, I was really seeing what I was really attracted to from the core of my being.
So maybe you would say it's like the disentanglement is our level of attraction to Krishna consciousness. And so far we attracted and where we not like what I get from you, it's not necessarily the external activities, but more the spontaneous attraction to find Krishna everywhere.
Yeah, and that attraction generally leads to a transformation in external activities. It's like the be do have principle. That in that transformation of being, the doing also takes a different form, generally speaking. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
George. Hey, George. Yeah.
I very much appreciate the sharing that is happening right now, and about the be do having. It seems like when we make some progress along the path, or we endeavor to be in contact with this transcendental knowledge steadily, it seems like it naturally leads us to inquire about what material adjustments we can make that are conducive to continue in this process. Because so often I find that like, oh, I should just be, it's so easy to fall in that trap of illusion of transcendence and just like miss it, It's like, yes, I can be satisfied chanting, and also I'm choosing not to live in the part of Detroit where they have shut the power grid down, like it's like so it's I'm definitely, that's very present with me, and I just wanted to share my appreciation about that, how to listen with an open mind as we make that as we make progress to really be connected in a tangible way with like, what does the scripture mean for me in like right now practically, and so I'm really appreciating your sharing how you made the necessary adjustment of kind of leaving kind of what you were used to in Philadelphia, and that was very conducive to continuing in the process. So I'm very moved. Thank you.
Thank you, George. Yeah, I mean, when I left there, I didn't have any spiritual goals that I was aware of, but Krishna and Prabhupada were helping me along to make some decisions. And yeah, it's like, of course, as far as the place we live and how we are in our living, we want to apply our intelligence to that in the context of living our highest purpose for self-realization and developing love for Krishna. And we want to apply our intelligence, and the complementary side of that is, to whatever extent our plans go according to script or not, if we happen to find ourselves living in the part of Detroit where they just shut the power grid down, the power grid down, if we happen to find ourselves there, then we're peaceful and enthusiastic to do bhakti yoga and to chant Hare Krishna, right? It's not like an aspiring devotee of Krishna is irresponsible and neglectful of the material considerations and details. No, a devotee is quite efficient with time, excellent with people, and intelligent and like that. And then however things come out, then we're peaceful and inspired to practice Krishna consciousness in this particular context. And yeah, I was in the context of, I was chanting 60 rounds a day in the Israeli military. I was drafted in the Israeli army. I was in Arab villages where, like if most any person in Israel heard you were there as a nice Jewish boy, you'll get a knife in the back. So we were just blissfully chanting Hare Krishna and distributing Prabhupada's books. So yeah, so of course we want to work like everything depends on us and arrange our life according in a purposeful way and pray like everything depends on Krishna. Yeah, so thanks for your comments, George. Thank you.
Hey, David. This is.
Hey, Rebecca.
Hey. So.
Penta.
Yeah. So, one of the things that I appreciated was your comments about how humans already have this propensity and potential for austerities in the way that we live our lives. We're always making a choice, and it is creating a sacrifice of some type in order to achieve a predetermined goal. And something that came up for me in that process was this recognition that for myself, it has been relatively easy to choose a segmented goal, focus my attention on it and achieve it, yet not having the scope of the transcendental self-realization. That is such a huge, humongous goal that I wonder about our capacity as human beings, and my own capacity actually to, it occurs to me that our limitations as humans, needing smaller goals to achieve, to achieve the breakdown of this much bigger worthy goal. And I wonder if you have any thoughts about that in regards to how the Bhagavad Gita, or in your own personal experience, that one can maintain that transcendental self-realization goal while moving through smaller subsets of these austerities in which we sacrifice for our love of God, our love of the divine.
Thanks for your comments and questions, Penta. I appreciate them very much. And they're very aligned with the spirit and teachings of Bhagavad Gita and this process of bhakti yoga. Yeah, we did kind of focus on the ultimate, and at the same time, yeah, these teachings, there's so much about meeting us where we're at and taking baby steps from there. Yeah, there's one verse, particularly in the 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, and Krishna speaking, of course, Srila Prabhupada translating, but the translation is he's talking about the bhakti yoga process, and Krishna says, gradually, step by step. That's exactly how it's translated. Gradually, like he's talking about baby steps, talking about so that there's not this artificial transcendence. And a beautiful thing about bhakti yoga, from my perspective, is the journey is the goal. So even if, like, okay, here's the path, And this path goes on for like 200 million miles, it seems. Oh, that could be daunting. But the thing is, like, even if we take a baby step, 6 inches, the journey is the goal. And that's different than other, like the goal, oh, when I get to heaven, that's the goal. When I get $10 million, that's the goal. When I get this mystic power, that's the goal. No, because like we just take, let's say we're like, okay, well, I'll chant the names of God for 1 minute today. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. That's the goal. Now, and by living that goal, we're also progressing on the journey. And so, yeah, and it's so just like there's three modes of nature: tamas, or inertia; rajas, or activity; and sattva, or the mode of enlightenment. So the idea is, to the extent that we develop sattvic habits, then we're taking steps towards transcendence. And a sattvic habit might be, okay, yeah, as far as that whole meta goal that David just talked about, whatever. Okay, but yeah, I can see I'm ready maybe to be a little more conscious in my eating, a little cleaner in my eating, and than in the month of June than I was previously. So that's a step towards the goal. Okay, yeah. So it's recommended to take advantage of the early morning pre-sunrise hours. Okay, at least twice a week. I'll get up by 4:30 a.m. Maybe do 10 minutes of meditation. It's not 2 hours. And so, yeah, the general process is meeting ourselves where we're at, and accepting ourselves where we're at, and then we have guidance. We have guidance of the 200 million miles, and also guidance like, hey, based on where I'm at, okay, what step am I inspired to take today? That's the general principle. And then we could speak about the details in every life area, whether it's eating, sleeping, money management, meditation. So the process is so much about meeting ourselves where we're at, meeting others where they're at, and encouraging each other towards inspiration to, let's take a baby step forward in this month of June.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I appreciate that. It is a it is a way to meet us where we're at, and also I guess the thing that comes up for me is this feeling of being at, if we're just kind of getting met where we're at, and then we have this big transcendental goal. What happens in the interim when there are these plateaus that one reaches, where I guess I would call it, whatever we would call it, the ego self, the animal self, the earthly self, that consciousness continues to pull, and despite our best attempts at sattvic living, that it seems like one step forward, 2 steps back, or very small baby steps, which feels demoralizing, or for myself, speaking of my experience of feeling some discouragement at, okay, I'm gonna try baby steps in this area. Okay, I don't know, I feel discouraged. I'm gonna try to change this one. I have progress maps of these baby steps I'm taking, and I feel as if it never. I feel oftentimes, I guess fragmented in that process of making changes towards self-realization, which steps to take, because there's so many things that we can improve about ourselves. And
Yes.
yeah, I don't know, I guess it's just a little bit of confusion about the big goal versus the baby steps, and the in between.
Thanks for sharing. And here that I like the way you described it. Sometimes it feels, well, I took a step or two forward, then 2 or 3 steps backward, and this is the 100th time, and that can feel disheartening.
Yeah, definitely.
It can feel disheartening. And then, yeah, I mean, I've experienced all of that. I've experienced all of that and still do. Yes. And then, okay, then I see like in in one sense that's a lot of what we endeavor to do, like in the Sappho programs. Srila Rupa Goswami, he is a great philosopher and saintly person from about 500 years ago. And he gave in his writings this metaphor of the garden of the heart. Maybe remember we have a handout in the foundational seminar called Pulling the Weeds.
Mm-hmm.
The idea it's the garden, cultivating our consciousness, our soul's devotion for Krishna and self-realization. And so just like in a garden, it's important to water the flowers and make sure they have sunlight and nutrients and the proper soil. And it's also important to pull the weeds. It's also important to pull the weeds. And because if we water and we don't pull the weeds, the water and the nutrients will actually grow the weeds, and the weeds will strangle the flowers. And so watering process is like the chanting Hare Krishna, like that. And of course it's also important to water, because if we just pull weeds and we don't water, then we have a desert. So a lot of what we do in Sappho is the pulling the weeds process of self-realization. And so when I'm noticing, and not that like I'm a master of this, when I'm noticing though, that it seems like I'm just on a treadmill here, taking a step forward and 2 steps back. And I'm noticing I'm doing this, I'm doing that, but there's probably some blind spot I have, some weed in the heart that till now I've not looked at, some attachment, some attachment to something material. Maybe it's some attachment to envy or greed or lust or self-deception, and then those very frustrating patterns. To the extent that I'm sincere, they get to be a mirror for me to look at just where in my consciousness I need to shine light on something very shadowy. And it's important that we get proper guidance, because there's so many approaches to self-realization, God consciousness, even Krishna consciousness, and just a lot, if not most, of what's gone on in the name of those things. A lot of it is there's people misleading us, and so that's what personally I'm feeling very fortunate to have the guidance of Srila Prabhupada. And that's why for 40 years I've been reading his books and hearing his lectures, and so I have firm conviction that he's a real master of this process. He has no ulterior motive for his own aggrandizement or adoration or distinction. He's just a pure servant of Krishna. So it's important, because otherwise, like if we're seeking guidance from someone, and just like if you're tied up, your hands are tied, your legs are tied, and I'm like, oh, I'll save you, but my hands are tied too. That's a futile attempt. And so we can be efficient with our efforts, and it can feel more like, well, I took 2 steps forward and 1 step back. Well, I still took a step back because I'm a little confused, whatever. But 2 minus 1 is better than 1 minus 2. So that's an important point, that we're really sincere to seek and find genuinely authorized, effective guidance from realized persons.
Thank you, David. I appreciate your thoughts and your wisdom.
Thank you, Penta. I'm really glad you joined us. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Bhagavad Gita ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Thank you. Haribol. Thank you all. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Haribol.